Yeah,
Well, it covers,
that helps a lot.
yes.
Where's Brother Crump? Oh, there he is. Yes, sir.
Can I record?
Yeah. It's recording. People are coming.
Okay, everyone ready? Najee Ali, N-A-J-E-E, Ali, A-L-I. On behalf of our organization, Second Call, and our founder and CEO, Skip Townsend, it's an honor and privilege to welcome the family of Francola Armstrong, whose son, Keith Porter Jr., was murdered in cold blood. Second Call, we stand in solidarity with the family of Keith Porter Jr., as well as the attorneys. So it is our honor to introduce Black America's Attorney General, Ben Crump, the most dynamic and important and influential lawyer in the nation.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. Najee, I was about to say Attorney Ali. Say his name.
Keith Porter.
Say his name.
Keith Porter.
Say his name.
Keith Porter.
As Mr. Ali said, I'm Attorney Ben Crump, and I'm very honored to stand here with Attorney Jamal Toulson and all these other great lawyers who have come together not for any recognition or not to be the lawyer for the case, because Attorney Toulson already has that handled. But we come together to raise awareness of the killing of Keith Porter Jr., because too many people in America don't know his name. They know Renee Good name, they know Alex Peretta name, but they don't know Keith Porter Jr.'s name. So we're going to say his name, Keith Porter. Keith Porter. Keith Porter. Keith Porter. Keith Porter.
To Black Press US. Say his name, Keith Porter. Welcome to Black Press USA's morning show, where we bring you the headlines and, of course, the culture. And, of course, that was Ben Crump, who has been named one of the top Black newsmakers of the 21st century by the Black Press. And, of course, the conversation is Keith Porter. And that's our poll question this morning. So we want to start by engaging the chat. And we want to know, have you heard of Keith Porter Jr.? And the second part of the poll is, do you feel he gets the same coverage as Renee Good and Alex Peretta? All three were U.S. citizens, and all three were murdered by federal officers. And so let us know in the chat if you have heard of Keith Porter Jr. Lots of headlines to get through this morning. We're going to be in Los Angeles talking about the unhoused count. We're also going to have a conversation about reparations. There's some interesting reparation conversations developing out of Santa Monica, California. And of course, we're going to be tapping into Super Bowl headlines and a lot more. Plus, we have some guests for you to talk to. Don Romero says no, he hasn't heard of Keith Porter's name. And so good morning, everybody, and welcome to the chat. So the poll question is, if you're just chiming in, have you heard of Keith Porter Jr.'s name? We have some breaking and developing news that we want to tell you about. According to several news sources, U.S. military has been installed in Nigeria. Now, this is according to a top U.S. commander for Africa. So U.S. African Commander General Dagvin Anderson said the move came after recent talks in Rome with the Nigerian president, who in late December, if you recall, green-lighted American airstrikes in Nigeria that targeted Islamic militants Now, the commander Anderson said, speaking during a virtual news conference on yesterday, that the Nigerian president did agree that both countries needed to coordinate their efforts. So that is a developing story that we will continue to monitor as we look at this Trump administration just going into different lands. It's reminiscent to me. And I'll let you put that in the chat what you think it's reminiscent of. And in more news, breaking news, Minneapolis, y'all, and its residents have been nominated for a 2026 Nobel Peace Prize. So far, no word on Trump. Now, of course, this is amid the ongoing tensions in Minnesota over the actions of ICE. And this is the first time in Nobel Prize history where an entire city has ever been nominated. So, we continue to pray for Minneapolis. But I wonder how, that guy on Pennsylvania Avenue is feeling right now. Now, he might not have been named in the Nobel Peace Prize nominations, but, according to several redacted papers, he's definitely all up in the Epstein file, but everybody else is coming out randomly but his name. And so the Epstein files are released, and Russell Wilson was somehow named in them. And he tweeted and said, "Not today, Satan," as he addressed his name appearing in the Epstein files. And so he posted, "Nope, absolutely not. Not today, Satan. Some random plane broker tried to sell me a plane. I had no idea whose plane and never bought the plane. Never talked or met the man, thank God." So Wilson was mentioned in the Epstein files, but it was by a pilot in 2019 who was trying to sell him an Epstein plane. And so you see how all of these random conversations are coming out, but the one person whose name is allegedly all through it, just no mention. So we'll continue to follow the Epstein files and figure out how things are connecting the dots and tying back to Donald Trump. And of course, if you know on the Hill, there's still conversations about the Clintons coming to testify. And so that's still on the table. And so we'll keep you posted about that. But let's talk some HBCU headlines. And we have an update to the HBCU story we told you about regarding Tuskegee University basketball coach Benji Taylor being handcuffed at a game between Tuskegee and Morehouse. So joining us to discuss Black men in sports leadership is civil rights attorney and the former president of the Georgia NAACP. Welcome, Gerald Griggs.
Good morning. How you doing?
Good morning. Thank you for taking the time.
Anytime.
So I know we don't have a lot of time, so I'm gonna get straight to it. For our viewers that don't know, can you give us a brief update as you are one of the attorneys representing the coach from Tuskegee? Can you give us an update or a brief overview of what actually happened at that basketball game?
Yeah, so Coach Taylor was coaching college basketball, his team at Tuskegee. They were playing Morehouse. They ultimately lost the game, but several football players were on the baseline heckling and trying to get engaged with the basketball team, and then ultimately got into the handshake line. And so Coach Taylor, knowing the rules of the conference, you cannot have contact with athletes while they're playing, went over to the security, which turned out to be a on-duty police officer, and told him about the conference rules. He was expecting that they would move the football players out of the handshake line, but ultimately he was detained and handcuffed and taken into a rear room. And so we have been retained, myself and Harry Daniels and a couple other attorneys, to represent Benji in the unlawful detention that happened to him on Morehouse's campus last Saturday. And so we've reached out to Morehouse, are waiting a response to them because of the violation of our client's rights and the unlawful detention. So that's the update.
Now, the SIAC, so I went to Grambling, so I'm in the SWAC, but this is the SIAC. they responded. Can you give us an update on what their response was?
Yeah, their response was in full support of the coach and the conference rules. So they fined Morehouse an undisclosed amount. They released that statement about 2 days ago that they found that there was a violation of the conference rules, which was exactly what our client was trying to get law enforcement to understand. And so they fined Morehouse an undisclosed amount.
Now, Coach Taylor said he felt violated and heartbroken that his family and players had to see him treated like a criminal. So how are you calculating the damages of professional humiliation for a Black man in a leadership position like that?
Yes, I mean, this will follow Coach the rest of his career. It's been seen by millions upon millions, the video of him being taken out. It was also seen by thousands that were in the arena. So we are taking into account the professional harm to his reputation as well as the humiliation. He is the first collegiate coach ever to be arrested on the court. And so all that is going into the factors of our outreach to Morehouse, but the ball is in Morehouse's court. So we're not looking for a number. We're looking for his name to be cleared. We're looking for his reputation to be unharmed. And so it's incumbent upon Morehouse. And we all know the history of Morehouse. They're one of the central schools that is responsible for the civil rights movement. But here we are having civil rights being violated on their campus. So it's incumbent upon them to get in touch with us so we can clear Coach Taylor's name.
And you're speaking of HBCUs that we love dearly. But this happened at a classic rivalry, like when we see the Bayou Classic, right? Grambling versus Southern. So what is the message to other institutions about the legal liability they face when game day security isn't up to the code?
Well, they always need to understand the Constitution of both the state and the United States always applies in those situations. So they have to be cognizant of civil rights violations. And we would hope that we would never see anything like this on the HBCU campus. I mean, they are the purveyors of the creation of legions of lawyers and civil rights activists who have pushed forward for this. But I think that, rivalry games get intensified, but we have to remember the law still applies. So I think having adequate security and making sure that they understand that there are ramifications for any actions that are taken by security under your watch.
How is Coach Taylor doing?
He's shaken, but he's resolute to continue to coach and to continue to uplift the young men that are in his charge. He wants the world to know that he will continue to fight and clear his own name and make sure that individuals know that we will not stand for people's rights to be violated.
Now, you mentioned you're working with Harry Daniels on this. Now, is the goal a settlement and an apology, or are you looking to go all the way to a jury to ensure this never happens again for another coach?
Well, as you know, Harry and myself are trial lawyers, so we always expected it to go the full mile. But, if Morehouse wants to do the right thing and clear our coach's name and make sure that his reputational harm is taken care of, then we will, think about that option. But we are trial lawyers, so if we have to go to trial, we will go to trial to send a message not only to Morehouse, but to the rest of the colleges out here. We will not stand for coaches or players or anybody's rights to be violated on our watch. So we'll go the full mile if necessary.
And just to be clear, this is not, you're not looking at the SIAC. This is just particularly for Morehouse.
Just Morehouse and the officer in question.
Got it. Okay. Thank you for that update. But since I have you here, since we're talking about Black men in leadership being sidelined, let's look at the NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell, who just admitted that out of 10 head coach jobs this cycle, not one went to a Black man. He says the league needs to make progress, but we've been hearing this, of course, for 20 years. So let's talk about the Rooney Rule. The Rooney Rule was supposed to be the solution, but here we have in 2026, with only 3 Black head coaches in the league, that is 70% Black. So is the Rooney Rule now just a legal shield for owners to keep hiring who they want? Just saying that they're checking the box?
Yeah, I think that we have to reevaluate the Rooney Rule. I've always had concerns about the lack of diversity in coaching as well as in the front office in the NFL, considering it's a primarily black league. And, you cannot celebrate diversity on the sidelines and on the field by painting, messages without doing the actual hard institutional work. So I do think the commissioner needs to take a strong look at this. There may need to be more mandate in diversity and equity and inclusion in the NFL. And they need to understand that Colin Kaepernick said that there was a problem in the NFL in 2016, and he's still not playing. So I think that there needs to be a long, hard look at the Rooney Rule. I think they need to have more diversity in coaching and front office positions. And I think the NFL is on notice.
So we saw Brian Flores take the league to court over these same hiring practices. So you're a civil rights attorney. So we got to know, when a commissioner admits the results are unacceptable, but nothing changes, is there a path for a class action lawsuit on behalf of these fast over coaches?
Well, it would seem that way. It seemed like there was an admission that will hold up in court. So I don't currently have any clients suing the NFL, but hey, if they want to open themselves up to liability, I think they just did that. I also think that it is a good proactive step to admit the harm and to fix it before you have to face litigation. So hopefully the NFL is being honest in this dealing and will actually do something that affects widespread change.
Now, you said honest, but they just recently paused their accelerator program, which was designed to get minority coaches in front of owners. But they canceled it, citing the political climate. So is the NFL caving to the anti-DEI pressure at the expense of Black talent?
Yeah, well, I would ask the NFL, has the civil rights laws changed? I mean, I understand the political climate changed, but the law hasn't changed. So I think that their lawyers are giving them bad legal advice. You cannot change with the winds of politics. You better stick to the law. And so I think that they have now signaled that there's a liability issue. I think that they need to do everything within their power to live up to those words they keep painting on fields.
And lastly, the HBCU pipeline. Now, of course, we talked about Coach Benji Taylor at Tuskegee. So when we see the good old boy network blocking Black coaches at the NFL level, does that put even more pressure on our HBCU programs to be the only place where Black coaching excellence is allowed to lead?
Well, I think that the HBCU programs are the birthplace of Black excellence in coaching. I mean, you have to look no further than Eddie Robinson, who is the greatest coach of all time, full stop. So I think that it reinvigorates the HBCUs to continue that legacy of coaching excellence. I think that they are great incubators. You have to look no further than all of the NFL legends that are now coming back to coach at HBCUs to continue to build a tradition of HBCU football. And I think that if the NFL does not come around to understanding the talent that is available at the coaching and front office level, maybe it's time for our own league.
You know what? Somebody just put that in the chat. How about Black people having our own football league? They just put it in the chat. Confirmation.
Great minds think alike.
I know you have to go to court. Thank you for taking the time, but we have to ask you our poll question for the day. Have you heard of Keith Porter Jr.?
Yes, he was the first person killed by ICE the top of the year. I think it was either December the 31st or January the 1st. He was the first individual killed by ICE. He's a Black man whose name has not been said enough, and they have not gotten justice against ICE.
And one follow-up question to that, because you are the former president of the Georgia State NAACP. The NAACP just came out and said abolish ICE, not defund, not reform, but abolish. What are your thoughts?
My thoughts are the NAACP is always on the cutting edge, listening to the community. I think if you're going to have armed, masked men and women going through the community, snatching up, individuals who are American citizens or who want to become American citizens, you have a problem. And so what I would say is 90% of the individuals that are being taken into custody by ICE have no criminal record. So what are we doing? We cannot just believe something because somebody sat in front of a camera and repeated criminal illegals. You have to actually prove in a courtroom that a person has violated the law. So I think that I'm with the NAACP. If ICE is going to be lawless, abolish ICE.
Thank you so much for taking the time, family. This is civil rights attorney Gerald Griggs. He's out of Georgia, Atlanta. He's on his way to court, but we love to have you back.
I'll definitely come back when I'm not in court. I appreciate you. Thank you for uplifting Coach Taylor's story, and we will continue to fight for justice for Coach Taylor.
Yes, have a good one. Thank you.
All right, you too. Thank you.
All right, bye-bye. So let's head from Georgia. Let's head to Los Angeles. We have a full conversation for you this morning about what's happening. Let's start in Santa Monica, California, who has approved an historic $3.5 million in reparations. Now, in a unanimous 7-0 vote, the Santa Monica City Council established one of the nation's largest locally funded restorative justice programs. Now, the 3.5 million fund aims to address decades of discriminatory housing and exclusionary policies that displaced Black residents, including the descendants of the historic Ebony Beach Club. It's just like Bruce's Beach. You remember when they got rewarded because the land was taken? So this is the same. Now, this initiative focuses on supporting descendants and residents harmed by past city policies, such as the construction of the I-10 freeway through Black neighborhoods. Now, I know the question is, where does the 3.5 million go? Who does it go to? How is it going to be distributed? So they did release some information. So the focus areas for the funds are aimed at housing assistance, economic development, and other initiatives targeting families displaced, right? How they plan to implement it. The city will establish a framework to identify eligible beneficiaries and define specific actionable reparative measures. So that's what's happening. Some real, passing out of reparations for those that were affected, by these systemic practices in our nation. And so let's head down to, let's talk about the homeless count. So Los Angeles annual homeless count is still underway. It happened last week, but now they're counting. And advocates say there's one population that's especially hard to get an accurate count on, and that's families. So homeless services providers say families don't usually experience homelessness out on the streets. Instead, they are more likely to be living discreetly in their cars, in motels, and with other, families. So providers worry they'll see more families struggling with homelessness, with funding cuts to service systems, and that's thanks to the federal government. So here's why all this is important. The 2026 Greater Los Angeles homeless count is essential because historically, the unhoused in Los Angeles represent 30 to 40% of African Americans. Okay. That we represent 30 to 34% of the unhoused population. But the problem is African Americans only make up 8% of the community here in LA. So if we're 8%, but we make up 30 to 34% of the unhoused, that is a serious crisis. That is a pandemic, an epidemic, and all of the above. And so we're waiting on our next guest, Chris Martin, who is running for city council in Los Angeles. And that community is unhoused with a high population. And also it has been a population that has been predominantly run by African Americans. The 9th district in LA has been Black led since 1960. And he is the only Black person running for that office right now. And so he's going to come talk to us and tell us, is he getting Black support from the community, right? And he's going to come talk to us about why he's running. And while we wait for him, we're going to jump to another story. And so Well, let's see what the chat is saying right now. Good morning, Dr. Marilyn. She says, thank you. No, Xavier uncovers 7 million enslaved in Africa today, yet nobody talks about. Okay. We got some chat. Let us know if you agree with our poll for today. Have you heard of Keith Porter Jr.? Have you heard of Keith Porter Jr.? That is the poll question of the day. Let's go to some more HBCU headlines where Morris Brown College has secured nearly $1 million in new funding. Now, this is through a combination of private and public support, including contributions from ATL rapper T.I. and from the AME Church, plus a federal grant of approximately $700,000 coming from the federal government and by way of Georgia Representative Nikema Williams. And this comes, of course, after we were talking about this. Kevin James was terminated. Then he was reinstated as president. And so he came back and got money from T.I., who has the hottest song out right now. And that, of course, is Representative Nikema Williams. So congratulations to Morehouse. All right. And so now let's talk about relationship goals. So if you haven't heard, Kelly Rowland and Method Man premieres today on Netflix with their new Valentine's Day movie called Relationship Goals. And the film follows a high-powered TV producer who is played by Kelly Rowland. And then she has to go head-to-head with her ex, who plays Method Man, for the top job at a major morning show. So there you have it. That is on, it's actually on Prime. It comes on Prime today. So you can go check that out. And then here's some funny news and happy news for two of the most funniest comedians in the country. I'm talking about Martin Lawrence and, of course, Eddie Murphy. Now, the son of Eddie Murphy and the daughter of Martin, as you know, they were married last year. And now they have announced they are expecting their first child. And so we definitely want to send congratulations to them. And Eddie shared the news during an appearance on the Jennifer Hudson show, where he and Hudson reunited for the first time since they started together in Dreamgirls. But yes, this is the couple. And, you know, everybody is still talking about, you know, to pivot real quick about this Sherry Shepherd situation, right? So Lonnie, what is Lonnie's last name? Lonnie Anderson? Lonnie, you know, the one that used to play on The Real, comedian. What is it? Lonnie Love. She tweeted yesterday that the production company that is in charge of the Sherry Shepherd show should have been more sensitive and allowed her to break the news to her viewers, just like they gave Kelly Clarkson the opportunity to share it with her audience. So apparently it seems like Sherry Shepherd was blindsided by the news. And this comes as her ratings are doing well. And she's pulling in all the top names. And so that's the kind of, yeah, there it is. She slams the production company. Yep. And she, you know, reached out and gave her love because, you know, that's tough. It's tough to get canceled. But you can always reinvent yourself. And like somebody said in the chat yesterday, Sherry's a comedian. And she's also an actress, and she has a lot of things going. So she'll definitely be able to come on back. Dr. Marilyn says, I have a crush on Method Man. So I think our guest is in. So we were talking about the unhoused. I really wanted Chris to hear that, but he knows what's happening in LA. So let's bring in our guest, attorney Chris Martin, who's running for Los Angeles City Council 9th District seat. Good morning, Chris.
Good morning. How's it going?
It's going good. I know it's early for you, but you looking dapper at 5:35 in the morning. I love
Thank
it.
you. I appreciate that.
So we were talking about earlier the unhoused count. And we just laid out the hidden homeless crisis, which of course is families, right? Who are living
Right.
in their cars and motels to avoid the streets. So my
Yeah.
question to you is, how do you fix a system that ignores the most vulnerable Black families just because they aren't visible on the sidewalk?
Right. I mean, I think that this question gets to the heart of what's broken, right? The system is designed to respond to what it can see, not to what families are actually experiencing. I feel like Black families are living in cars, or motels, or doubled up, and are effectively punished for trying to survive with dignity. They are invisible to the count, invisible to services, and invisible to funding decisions. And I think that ultimately, if you only count suffering when it's visible, you end up governing for optics instead of people. And as council member, I would push for the city to formally recognize family homelessness as a separate category with outreach strategies that don't rely on sidewalk counts, but on partnerships with schools, child care centers, faith institutions, and motels where families already show up. I think that ultimately families shouldn't have to fall all the way onto the street to qualify for help.
So, Chris, how old are you? If you don't mind me asking.
How old do I look?
Maybe 29, 30.
I'll take it. I am 37.
Oh, you're 37. Okay, so you're
Yeah.
37.
Yeah.
And explain the makeup of a Los Angeles 9th district. Explain what that area is.
Sure. The 9th district is where it all began for Black folks in Los Angeles, dating back to the 1940s with the rich, jazz history. This was the place where, particularly on the east side where I'm born and raised, over by Phillips Temple, where we go to church, right?
Mm-hmm.
Black folks had to live on the east side, no matter how rich or how poor the community was back in the 1940s and 50s. And the community thrived because of that, right? Because restricted covenant prevented people from being able to move further west, right? But as soon as those restricted covenants were lifted, a lot of the Black families who could afford to move west did. And, it did kind of leave, the 9th district in a place where it's not as it's not doing as well as it used to because of that,
Right. And I think, it's important to establish, what the 9th district is in LA. And you brought up the jazz festival. The jazz era. The historic Dunbar Hotel is there where you could see, Dizzy Gillespie. You could see Duke Ellington. So everybody was in on Central Avenue as far as the Black community. I think it's important to highlight the Los Angeles Sentinel newspaper was established on Central Avenue in 1933. So the Black press was there. When we talk about celebrating 199 years, the Black press was on Central Avenue. And so the makeup of, that area in LA has changed. It's predominantly Latino now, keep it 100. But the seat that you are running for has been held by a Black person since 1960. Okay, that's a long time for a Black person to hold that seat. How has the Black leadership in LA received you as a candidate? Are you having support? Are people taking conversations, or are they just going with the other candidates?
People are taking conversations, but I think that deals have already been put in place to give up the seat long before those conversations are had. And like you said, the community itself is majority Latino, but the majority of the voters have always been Black and still are Black, which is why we've always had a Black city council person there in this district, or here in this district, since 1960. But yes, there are deals that are already in place to essentially give up our seat at the table, right? One of 3 Black seats that we have. So that's how the Black establishment is viewing things right now. And I
Let
think
me
that
say that. I think you brought up a good point, because I want to make sure that we paint this picture. So you're the only Black candidate running for office in the 9th district. And so you brought up 3 council members. And so you're talking about city council, where we have Marquise Harris Dawkins as the president of LA City Council.
Yeah.
Then you have Heather Hutt, who is a city council member. She's actually my city council member. And then you have Curran Price, which is the 9th, which is the seat that you're running from. And those are out of how many city council members do we have?
we have 15 right now.
Okay. And so we have 3. And so if you don't win, then we're only going to have 2.
Correct.
That's what I'm saying. Okay. I think perspective is, context matters.
That's exactly what it is. And I think that we have a important question that we have to ask is, are we ready to give up our seat at the table? And it seems like the Black establishment is ready to give up that seat at the table. And it's incumbent upon me to say, no, we are not going to give up our seat at the table.
And so you were raised in the 9th district. And talk about, because it's like, you can't just, say, okay, I just have to vote for the Black person, just
Right.
because there's only one Black person, that's not what's being said.
Right.
But talk about why you're running and why you're qualified to run.
Right. Absolutely. Because I'm more than just the quote unquote Black person. I am uniquely qualified to be able to do this because I know the district better than any other candidate, right? Being born and raised in South Central Los Angeles, being born and raised on the east side in the Central Avenue Jazz District off of 43rd and Central Avenue. I never left my community because I love my community with all of my heart and with all of my soul, right? Even after I became a lawyer, I still decided to stay in my community so I could change my community from within. Everybody else, a lot of the other candidates moved into the district because they felt like the 9th district was an easier, opportunity for them to be able to win elected office.
Mm-hmm.
I'm running because I genuinely want to be able to serve my community while I live in my community.
All right. So let's talk a little bit about tech and the future. You propose building an AI-focused job center in South Central. Gen X often, I'm a Gen Xer, we often feel skeptical about tech leaving us behind. We're skeptical about it, but also we don't want to get left behind. So why is AI the new civil rights frontier in your assessment for South LA? And how do you ensure that tech means high-paying jobs for the people currently living in the district and not just new residents? Because we know that gentrification is happening in LA.
Right.
And so, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that every major economic shift in this country has either included Black communities or it has left them behind. I think that the new technology will be no different unless we intervene now. I think that the next wealth gap is being coded right now. And a job center in South Central on Central Avenue that focuses on technology isn't necessarily about turning everyone into a programmer, but it is about access. It's about training and certification and apprenticeships and pathways into high-paying jobs that don't require leaving the district. It is also about ensuring that Generation X workers can transition, that young people can compete, and that South Central Los Angeles isn't locked out of the fastest growing sector in the economy. I believe that technology should be a ladder and not a wall.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I think that it's crucial that we train up folks, especially the next generation, so that they can become, six-figure earners like myself and decide that they want to stay in the community and improve the community from within. I'm trying to create a whole new generation of young people who are like me, who love this community and have the means and resources to be able to change it from within, not to move from the community, but to improve the community from within.
Now, ICE is running rampant. And of course, the 9th district is a very heavily populated Latino and immigrant community. What are your thoughts on ICE, and what are your thoughts on the police chief saying that he will? So I guess city council, and there was a mandate that ICE ICE officers had to show their face. They can't walk around with the mask. And the police chief said that he's not going to enforce that on ICE agents. What's your response to that? And if you were chosen as elected as the 9th District City Council member, what would be your approach to dealing with this ICE crisis we're in?
Yeah. Well, I think it's a shame that the police chief won't enforce unmasking those ICE agents. I want to be clear about that. I think that Los Angeles has to remain a city that protects immigrant families and not collaborate in their harm. ICE enforcement, I believe, destabilizes families, and it terrifies children, and it drives people further into the shadows, which only worsens homelessness and labor exploitation and public health outcomes. And as council member, I'll stand up to the city of Los Angeles. I've got ample experience as a civil rights attorney, standing up to the city of Los Angeles when they abuse the rights of Los Angelinos, right? When they abuse Black and brown people. I got ample experience as a lawyer in children's court defending Black and brown families when they were trying to keep their families together or get their families back after DCFS, would get involved and try to take their children. And there's a lot of crossover with immigration issues with that. So as council member, I got no problem standing up to those oppressive folks in there. I will defend and strengthen sanctuary policies. I will oppose any local cooperation with ICE enforcement, and I will support legal defense funding for immigrant families facing detention or deportation. I believe that ultimately, family separation is family separation, whether it happens at the border or in South LA, and public safety should not come from fear. It should come from trust.
I mean, I love it, Chris. And so you are planning to gather your signatures. Before we let you go, for people don't understand what it takes to run for office. How you have to put yourself out there, and how you have to get signatures, and most importantly, how much money it costs to run for office. So, I mean, you are in the phase now of gathering signatures, right?
Yes.
Okay. And so what is that process like to get on the ballot? What's the process to get on the ballot?
The process to get on the ballot, of course, after filing all of the necessary, paperwork like declarations of intent to run, you have to get signatures on a petition. You have to get a minimum of 500 residents of the 9th District to sign your petition to get on the ballot. If you get 500, then you have to pay a $300 fee. If you get 1,000, then you don't have to pay the $300 fee. So I'm shooting for over 1,000. I'm gonna be out here on February 7th from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. at Phillips Temple, my home church, located 971 East 43rd Street in Los Angeles, in South Los Angeles. And I welcome everybody to join me.
Okay. All right. Well, we wish you the best. The primary is June 2nd, this year. So make sure you're registered and ready if you're in LA. And so thank you, Chris, because we're going to be talking to a lot more what it means to be young, gifted, and Black candidates that are running for office on a local and state level, because I'm always one to say is that real change happens on a local and state level. So thank you for waking up and taking the time to join us this morning.
Absolutely. Right. I'm following the footsteps of Gilbert Lindsay. The humble janitor who went from sweeping the floors of City Hall to becoming the first and longest serving Black city council person in Los Angeles city history. That is the legacy that I'm walking in, and I'm looking forward to y'all's support. Thank you.
I love it. That's one of your Black history facts for the day. Say his name one more time.
Gilbert Lindsay.
Oh, and I didn't ask you, before I let you go, I didn't ask you our poll question for the day. Have you heard of Keith Porter Jr.?
Yes, I have. I have met the family, and it's just, ICE is out of control. ICE is out of control, and my heart goes out to them. I see the family every Wednesday, and I'll be seeing them later today.
All right. Somebody, Orange says, picking and choosing on what laws to enforce is a cause for removal without pay. Mayor Bass, I am a supporter of you, but if you let this happen, you will lose your reelection. Oh, that's somebody in the chat. That wasn't for you. All right. Thank you, Chris.
Take care.
All right. Bye-bye. Nancy Wall says, why should they be allowed to mask and the local law enforcement doesn't? I don't understand why they are united. David Youngblood says ICE is out of control. And then Nancy Wall says, thank you, brother, for running and explaining your thoughts. Yeah, we'll be having a lot more candidates coming on that are running for the midterm election, because as we know, this is critical. We're going to have a conversation tomorrow about Donald Trump trying to nationalize elections. That's what we saw the start of when we saw them taking those boxes out of the Fulton County elections office. And they said it was something bigger. So he's now starting this week to say that he wants to nationalize elections. So we're going to have a conversation about that. And so midterms are critical. They're important. And the Republicans and the Trump and MAGA, they're scared. And so now they're also talking about, I think Orange G put this in the chat earlier, the conversation of Stephen Bannon saying that ICE will be at the election voting sites. So this nationalizing elections, ICE, the intimidation factor that they are trying to push, the levels that they are going to try and steal, and intimidate. Those are the two words that they're working on, steal and intimidate. And so it's critical that we continue to have these conversations and uplift these voices that are really trying to make changes in our local communities and in our states, because that's where the battle is right now. Even though it's a midterm for Congress, those people are coming from the states and they're going to be representing us on Capitol Hill. So midterms are critical, and we're really going to wrap this conversation up about what's at stake for Black Americans in this country. And with that said, we are only great because of our past. So let's jump into some Black history facts before we get up out of here. Today, in 1913, Rosa Parks, the first lady of civil rights, she was born in Tuskegee, Alabama. Sorry about that. She was born in Tuskegee, Alabama. And her story, of course, we all know. It was adapted into a 2002 TV movie, The Rosa Parks Story, starring Angela Bassett. So today we celebrate the life, the legacy, the memory, and the work of Mother Rosa Parks. Let's fast forward and have a little fun, because we're all about headlines and what? The culture. In 1989, New Edition's Can You Stand the Rain was the #1 R&B song in the country. So you can go play that today, wherever you got to go. And in honor of the Super Bowl that's coming up on Sunday in 2007, he's been known as the Symbol, but we all know him as Prince. He performed his legendary Super Bowl halftime show in Miami. So we hope you've been informed, entertained, because we do this for you. It's the headlines, it's the culture, it's Black Press USA. So for the latest in Black news, visit blackpressusa.com, and we'll see you tomorrow.